We'll see in a second as the internet warms up or whatever. There it goes. It's thinking about it. Okay. Well, in that case, oh look, a Fortnite ad. Hooray! Oh my gosh. Alright, internet. I'm going to try to dig real deep here. Find what's left of any of the energy that I have.
You don't have energy.
And, oh, now I'm watching myself on stream. I'm going to close this window. That's not going to help anyone. There we go. I'm Dustin. There's my hand. I'm waving it. Hello.
I'm tired.
That's Lorraine. She's tired. We're both very tired.
Social media stuff.
It has been a long fucking week. But,
Jeez.
we are here anyway to do at least just a little bit.
That list. Aww.
Well, alright. I just made notes of... I had written some of this stuff down.
It's so long.
We're gonna do this one.
Who missed?
Tonight, and then maybe call it an evening. I'm not 100% sure. We're gonna do that one, and we're gonna go down here and run the game once or twice. Because I certainly won't be done testing spawning stuff in at that point, but I'm pretty sure I did fix... Because I believe, if I remember correctly, where we left off last time was that we had set up all the code to flow through, and then it didn't seem like it was working. Does that jive with your recollection of whatever happened last Thursday, Lorraine?
I don't remember what happened last Thursday.
So anyway, in the intervening hours, despite having way too much other shit happen other than this, I believe I fixed that issue. And some of it was like stuff I knew we had done a little bit wrong, and some of it was just like, I think I had done like missed calling a function somewhere or something. But in any case, the thing I'm going to do right this moment is run the game once and at least see if we can get multiple things to spawn in when enemies die. Oh, that's just an empty scene? I think it might be.
Yes.
It sure is. This is the one we want. Now, if you were really good, if you were very observant and you looked at that list, you'll see that even if this does function, we're by no means done with spawning stuff in, because there will at minimum need to be code that will offset items from each other when they spawn in. There you go. But see there, that was working, I believe. I probably fired a little quickly, but okay, that's not right. I think there's something... I know what's up with the walls. That was the last thing I did that I knew what was wrong, but I hadn't fixed it yet, so we're not going to worry about that. Yeah, there you go. So that spawned 3 things total.
Yes.
1 for the blob and 2 for the enemy itself. Okay, so yeah, that does appear to be working. Again, we'll need to at least change some stuff to make sure that they're all not like directly landing on top of each other or whatever. And off the top of my head, I don't remember what the thing that's going on with the wall specifically is right now, but I do remember that I saw it and it was a relatively easy fix. So yeah, I always would have liked more, but at least a tiny little smidgen of progress was made since we last streamed, so that's something, I guess. But anyway, we got this whole other list of stuff. This is all left over from last week. This is all stuff I had written out on my phone originally and copied over here right before we began. Other things that need to get done. We're going to do this one right now, I sure hope. So, as I've described before, among the things that we're going to have costumes do, some of the highest level stuff is just they can change the amount of damage that enemies take, and they can change the rate or content of things that they drop while you have costumes equipped. So we've done the stuff. They can drop more stuff or drop different things under different circumstances depending on how we tweak settings. We have not done any of the damage stuff, which is one of the, like, we looked at some code I think last week that would eventually be used for that purpose. That now we're going to implement some version of that today. So, with all that in mind, yeah, I don't think this will be necessarily as long as we usually go. As I said, we are running on fumes here, if I'm being real. But I did want to do at least something this week on the internet, so here we are.
I was fine until I got home. Like, I crashed hard. I just lost all my energy.
I mean, I was more okay until I finished the dishes, and then I was like really petering out. But anyway, yeah. So we're gonna try to set it up so that at least for Marta's main basic projectile, which is currently the only one she gets by default right now, the other ones are supposed to be picked up later after defeating bosses. We want to set things up such that we can change the amount of damage that does to enemies, and really. I'm pretty sure almost everything to make that work is ready to go. Yeah, this is. There's two. Oh, shut up.
Never.
There's two major places I think we're going to need to edit stuff to some extent to make this work. Darn it. The first one will be in here, where we'll actually just have to attribute some kind of greater than 0 value for the modifiers that determine damage, which in this case should be this normal damage mod. And then subsequently in this enemy controller, the base one, if I can find the right function, it should be here. So if there's no modifier, we want to do just decrement the health by 1 when we take a hit. If there is a modifier, we had thrown this in here as just like a very quick fix. This was one of the issues we had last week, but this is basically just going to get replaced now with, as this will describe, just other code that will decrement the health in a different manner than just taking it down by 1 pip when damage is taken if you have one of these modifiers on. So, just right. Just looking down here, seeing where I want to put this. Just shove it right in here. That's fine.
Shove it.
We'll say void for right now. We'll go. Function that will check that out. We're going to pass it one of these. Okay. And we're going to call it here. Alright, good enough. So, with that in mind, I'm going to just grab all this shit. I'm just going to shove it in here for now, because this is where we'll be making our changes for that. That's all good. And now we come back over to here, and we'll look at these values, and we'll see that so we had changed these to integers for simplicity's sake to work with that RNG function, like the base one that we're using them for the most part is baked into C#/Unity. These ones are still floats for the moment, but they don't necessarily have to be. So here's my question for you, Lorraine. Do we want the modifiers? Do we want the way the costumes will modify damage to add or subtract a specific amount of like health deduction? Do we want them to like modify the total health damage as like a percentage of the base damage that an attack might do, or do we want the ability to potentially do either or? Because really any of those is a path that's open to us, but so does that all make sense, like that statement that I just made, like my question?
What you're saying is modifying the damage based on their health or based on how much projectile it does, right?
Either way, it'll be based on the projectile. So yeah. So I guess let me try to rephrase it in a way that's more understandable. Do we want for the damage modifier here to literally just add a set amount of damage to a specific projectile. For example, if Marta's basic projectile just does, health -1 or whatever, do we want this number, if it were a 3,
you change there you go.
To make that, just add that on to the base damage of 1, making that basically like 4 damage per like basic projectile she shoots. Or would we want this to be like, let's say, something like that, where it would essentially it would add roughly 33% of any existing damage onto the projectile. For example, if it did 1, we would just do, damage equals base projectile damage plus base projectile damage times this modifier here. Or the third option would be, do we want the potentially for costumes to do either or, in which case I would probably just add like an additional second set of values here, and then we'd only set one of them at a time. So when we're dealing damage, we'll check one and then check the other. So if the like actual added damage modifier is 0, we'll see if like the percentage modifier is greater than 0, and if either one is true, we'll just apply whichever one happens to have a non-zero value.
I mean, I'm sure either one of them is fine, but do you think there's really a benefit of having both?
Not necessarily. I'm just asking like how you would feel, just like if you have any strong opinions one way or another.
I mean, probably not really, honestly. I feel like either one gets... Seems we gets the point across.
But the other thing to keep in mind right now,
really well.
Because when you look at the way this is set up, where these are just decrementing their health value by a set amount, is that I don't think any of the projectiles deal more than this damage, right? In builds to date, like deal more than like a single plunk.
I don't remember if any of the alt weapons do. I don't think they do. I think they might do more to bosses, but I could be wrong.
So I guess that even kind of expands that question further. Is like, as we tweak other stuff, do we want to tweak other projectiles to do potentially even more damage inherently? In which case, it might be more interesting or more beneficial to modify their damage in addition to, or as opposed to just adding more onto it. Well, just to keep our options open for right now, let's go back over to here. And in fact, I think we will need to ultimately go in here too, right? Yeah, so we're gonna... And some of the stuff I still might change at some point, but for right now... I'll leave these as is. And we'll also do... Nope.
Why didn't you just copy the initial one?
I don't know.
Because
I'm
now
tired. That's my answer.
This is just the workings of a madman over here.
Because I'm not operating at anywhere near 100%.
Chaos.
I'll make these ints maybe. I'll think about it. What's the health value? The health value is probably an integer. But let's go check. No, it's a float. Okay. Then I guess I'll just leave them both as floats. That's fine. Whatever. And then we're gonna have to add. very careful about doing this correctly. Oh, that's because this one is the full. Again, my brain is not at 100%. Nope. There's one of those. This one's lowercase. Can't have that. Can't have them mixed. That's just wrong. Okay, that looks right to me. Gotta fix all these. This is gonna be basically the same thing. Brain bad. Okay. And just for the sake of argument right now, delete all that. Okay. So now what is still upsetting?
Everything. This should fix all this. Okay. This is such an ugly disaster. I still hate them. Looking at them makes me
It's
upset.
bad. I know. Not now. Not while I'm this tired.
But I'm this tired and I'm focused on it.
Alright. What else are you pissed about?
Everything.
This is the... Oh, right. Let's pull this one quickly. Shut up. Okay. All right. I think that's everything there. Go back over here real quick. Gotta put some values in here. And again, to kind of let us off the hook for this evening, I'm gonna say, not necessarily we're gonna worry about this one right now because that's gonna be very much involved with the specifics of the weapons, and will probably, if it comes into play at all, be more likely to come into play on the special weapons. So we're going to focus on this normal damage value modifier, and I'm just going to put in a number like 20, because all I really want to do is see if we had just seen when we booted up the game and just fucked with it for a second that firing one bubble at an enemy would not defeat it. So if the value is this high, I think the enemies are all currently tuned to have health values between like 3 and like 8-ish. So it stands to reason that if we have a number this high that's adding additional damage, excuse me, that will just wipe out anything in one shot, and it should at least be confirmation that something is happening after we've made all these changes. So go down here and get in here. Set up some ifs. Too, so let's keep that in mind. Cause yeah, that might be a totally different thing. So yeah, in fact, instead of setting up all the conditions, we'll just set up kind of the one we're testing and make sure that that one works.
Probably the best way to do it, I would think.
There we go. Just had to remember how that was all set up. There. Perfect. Okay, see, I'm not even going to worry about this shit right now. And then just for the sake of, just to make the game function correctly, while we're kind of still in flux here, if there is no normal damage mod, we'll still just add that health minus. Okay. If there is one, and in fact, the other thing I'm going to add here is
Get typed up butts.
these might become like nested at some point, actually.
For a second, I wasn't sure why that first declaration you did look so wrong. Then I realized it was an uppercase I
Yeah.
for the if, and I was like, oh. It took me a second. I wasn't sure why it looked so wrong.
I'm not going to prompt me because I can't remember what that was. It just proj type?
I mean, there's proj type right down there. But I don't remember if it was written like that. I'm assuming? Oh, it's so mad. Much upset.
Does this not return what I think it returns?
Did you set up the
I don't
shield
remember.
to have that stuff?
No, not yet. That's among the things I have to still do, right? In fact, I'll probably just need different, like, more values in here or something to account for that. But, no, we want to look in here. Just returns one of those. That is very strange to me. Oh, get projectile type. The get type must be like a reserved function. It's not actually the thing we need. It's this. And then I need to. Now is it cool? Okay. Okay. And then, yeah. In fact, we don't even need this other else here, I don't think. Grab this out of here. Just gonna remove this. And to say, since these are modifiers, they're not replacing the damage, presumably ever, they're just changing it. So we get rid of all this stuff. I'll probably get rid of this comment here in a second too, but so we'll just leave that as the what'll happen by default, and this will get more complicated too, most likely, if we have anything else do more than just that. Space damage anyway. So then in any case, we've got this. If it's normal, we'll check this normal damage value. At some point, we'll check other stuff here as well. But if this is greater than 0, and then we'll just say health minus. This whole thing. Stop it. Okay. And I think that'll do it. I'm itching my foot.
Do it.
So if my calculations are correct, if my fucking addled brain is working, this might just do a thing. Let's see. And it kind of looks like it's working. This is going to error out again because these guys are screwed up for different reasons. Alright, look at that.
Woo!
That's a great sign. Oop.
He goes.
Bop, 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 bop. Perfect. Awesome. Okay, that is great.
They're dead.
Alright.
They're all dead.
So that is excellent news.
Egg salad.
So, now that we've done that, the other thing here is, because really this is just stored inside each and every projectile type thing now, which will include the basic bubbles, it'll include the shield as described here, and it'll include any special attacks. I'm thinking what, and if Lorraine, if we do want to have the different items do different kinds of damage by themselves, which I think would maybe be a good idea, I think we should just add that in here, right? Probably. Because I can't think of an easier, like, this is already flowing all the way up through the chain, and while technically the only stuff contained in here right now does have to do with the costume modifiers, there's no reason we couldn't put any base damages in here too and have that shit flow that way.
I mean, weren't you gonna build a more like inheritance structure for the alternate weapons?
Yeah, but they're still ultimately at some point gonna inherit at least from this, if not from like something else as well. Again, I'm just kind of spitballing here.
Because if you add them, won't it just add to that horrible string?
Because we won't add them here necessarily, but if you'll see, like, and this is kind of just arbitrary, like I just sort of chose to declare this struct here and define it in this file, but it didn't. It could be in its own file. Like I just happened to do that this way. But really, what this, let me like close this, like shrink it. Really, what this contains is like this is the part that's actually being inherited by each projectile. And this is really the only stuff that's defined in here currently. So I guess what I'm really saying is that I would add it here, especially since...
add what here?
Just like, for example, values that were like... I don't think I'd make them public, but... Actually, maybe I would make them public. So we could just define them by setting them in the editor on like their prefabs.
Oh, so now we're setting stuff in the editor rather than prefabs.
And then instead of taking in here, instead of having the basic amount of damage that is removed be like minus, just decrementing it by 1, it would always be whatever this value is set to. We would remove this every time something gets hit instead. How does that strike you as a logical or sensible thing to do?
What does that have anything to do with the alternate weapons?
So it doesn't, like, it doesn't explicitly, but this, like...
Right, where was the through point?
This gives us the dynamism to change the amount of base damage
Dynamism?
that all the... Don't, Ryan, just don't. Leave me alone. Not tonight. I can take this shit on most days, but just
you don't understand
let me be.
that this level of me gets higher as I get more tired. This is a snake eating its own tail.
Oh my god, it's like you might as well have just... It was so bad, but it felt so good. It was like you pulled a copy of the New Yorker out of my back pocket, rolled it up, and then just swatted me on the nose with it. It was so great. Oh my god. Alright, I'm losing my mind here now. But anyway, I'm gonna push my eyes into my head.
Oh,
Okay.
please don't do that.
But this gives us two things. So this lets us like change the amount of base damage that everything does and kind of define it on a projectile by projectile basis. And it also gives us a reason for those other ones to even exist, the percentage-based ones. And then, like, that's explicitly, like, I can write that code right now if this is the way we decide to do this. Like, for the percentage-based ones is, like I said, we'll go back over here. We'll change this, like, you know, health -1 or whatever to just be, like, health minus equal base health or base damage or whatever. And then, like, down in here somewhere, we'll do, like, you know, get percent damage value, and if that's greater than whatever, then we'll just do health minus. Like, let's just write it all out, just as a thought experiment. It's not going to take that long. Like I said, we're not going to be streaming for. Actually, this I can copy. This I'm going to leave for now because the special weapons themselves specifically are still kind of like a different ballgame for our purposes this evening.
Why did you bring them up in the first place?
Because those are the ones that'll have widely different values relative to each other, presumably.
Will they?
I mean, I'm saying they could, but the intent to even do this at all would be because to allow them to. Oh, that's not right. That's the one. And then this would be something like. And actually, yeah, I'm gonna go. Just fuck it. I'm just gonna. Yeah, that exists. So we'll do. Just to be safe, I don't actually think we need the parentheses for this, but I always write them. That needs to change. Okay. So if the percentage modifier is, the value modifier is 0, then we'll check to see if the percentage modifier is greater than 0. If it is, we are going to subtract health equal to the base damage times that modifier. So let's just say if it was 0.5, it'll be like a 50% increase. And then down here, instead of doing this, we would just do basically this. Boop. And for, you know, the bubbles, it'll probably still just be 1. But for the other stuff, it could be different if we wanted it to be. And then that'll just, like, you know, that'll mean that percentage modifier will be more or less impactful on stuff with different base damages as we see fit, right? I'm stretching. Does that make sense?
I guess.
Okay, and then in that sense, and also I think I'm going to change this just to be better descriptive of. I'm just going to make it. So this is what I get, not time. This is what I get for writing all this code kind of far apart on a week where my brain is less than perfect. So that is much more descriptive of kind of which information is being stored where. Okay, that's cool. That's cool. That's fine. And then click back over to here. And yeah, we would just need to set this to something like I said, either in the editor or some other ways, or I could just set it up to if we didn't want to set these values in the editor, I could just set up like a stupid ugly if statement or something in here that would set them like as they spawn in or whatever, but let's just double check that. Do you have any recollection of what the basic bubble is called? This?
No.
Oh, that's the.
No. I don't think Bubble's in its name. Tack, maybe. If you just go into prefabs. It should be player somewhere. Player, just click on the top one. Projectile testing is probably it. There should be.
So this should have that variable now. Don't know if this will change it, like, if I click on this again, is it 1 now? Okay, that did set its default value. Alright, cool. So in that case, let's go ahead and let's leave that at 1. Let's go to here. Gonna set this to 0. We're gonna set this to, let's say, 0.5. Actually, no, I don't want to do that yet. Let's set this to 0 first to confirm. I think they have 3 health, like most of the regular. I'll just, like, in practice, just run the whole loop again, like the turrets and stuff. Have 3 health, and with no modifier, I should subsequently take 3 hits to be, knocked out or whatever. Oh, okay, they have a little more than that. Alright, I'm going to spam away at you. Now you, 1, 2, 3. Okay. So, stands to reason that if my calculations are correct, if we do set that to a 0.5, build that, go back in there and fight another turret, that we should kill it in 2 hits instead of 3. If I wrote all of everything correctly. Alright, there he is. Should be getting your butthole. Whatever. 1. Look at that! It worked! I love it when things work. Alright. So that's that. So we've done both of those things right now. That's pretty okay. Off the dome, let me think if there's anything else. I want to do right at this moment, because like I said, maybe I'll just do a little more like theory crafting and type up some more documentation or whatever, add some comments or something. Could certainly add one right here. Because I don't think my brain is ready to do any heavier lifting than kind of what we've already done today necessarily. Okay. There's that. Just to be safe. I really don't think it's going to come up a ton, but we're here. Why the hell not? Can't see any reason why this would be a bad thing. Excuse me, didn't quite get on that cough button in time. Okay. All right. Again, just go ahead and adjust this real quick. Go ahead and run this one more time. Just make sure that didn't screw anything up. It really shouldn't have, but my brain's also terrible, so. Oh, shoot. Shove you out of the way because you're not working right. That certainly looked to be correct still. Okay, perfect. All right. Other than that, let me think. This will need to be addressed somewhere.
Never. Don't address it.
Because we do want this to be different than. In fact, that's part of what needs to happen in here, actually. Because we have that is gunk. Yeah, we have this for a reason. So we're gonna do. I changed this a little because I had forgotten that we set that up. Okay. Then we're going to go ahead and add. We can get rid of this. That's fine. Confident that I can just get rid of this because I think that'll work out perfectly. Everything else inside of here for now. Oh. Not that. I lied. Everything but that.
When will the lies stop?
Okay. Go back up here. Standards. Okay. That looks fine.
Solution. Build, solution.
Go back in here and test that again.
Never.
Because that random gunk value doesn't do anything. So this should mean that those should still die in like whatever 3 hits or whatever it takes. Fuck you. Just get the fuck out of my face.
Never. Alright. I think that's right, okay. Okay. Click back over here. I
think that's basically just done. I feel like this is done enough that I'm gonna fucking delete this. All this stuff is still on the docket. I'm gonna add a new thing here. What do you think of that? Is that a thing we might be interested in? I'm just throwing out ideas.
Mm.
Okay. If that's the case, then I might go ahead and just extend those one more time to Or actually, I might revisit that whole function now that we've kind of built it out, sort of as it is to date. I might reconsolidate some of that stuff. So maybe I'll leave that as a question here. Do you have any other thoughts or ideas about what we've done today or what we might do in the future with the stuff we built out? Because I might actually try to go, like instead of making all these like weird discrete values or whatever, cases, especially cases like this, where we're probably not gonna, if we did do something like this, do you think it's likely that we'd make a costume that both changes the amount of damage dealt to bosses specifically and to other things in general? Because with having these all be like their own kind of discrete, like just a bunch of different floats or whatever that have like value modifiers in them, the idea is we can, if we desired, stack a bunch of them on top of each other that way. Whereas if we could remove the quantity of those values in some cases, if we thought that they wouldn't apply necessarily at multiple at the same time. For example, you could just have one damage modifier value, and then maybe have like, if statements like that just check bools that are all stored in there instead to see, which thing it's applying to or whatever. I don't know. I'm slightly rambling at this point, but in any case, I guess what I'm really saying is I'm not going to revisit it tonight because I'm just not up to it.
Yeah.
So Lorraine, let me just kick back to you. Looking at the text up here, or what we've done, the very little we've done today, or just kind of off the dome, can you think of anything right now that you would want to see changed or added? Something that might be cool, something that might just tweak something to this system of like changing the damage values on either specific types of enemies or just enemies in general.
I'm not 100% sure if I have any off the dome. I think the bool thing might be an easier way to kind of do some of that without adding to the onslaught of variables.
We'll see. I'll keep thinking about it.
If those special weapons are rare, could you just check on the enemy to see if the damage source is a special weakness of theirs, and if so, take the extra damage?
Possibly. Like I said, that's
Brian's
like
suggestion.
Yeah, that in fact we might just go ahead and do that. We'll see. Because the thing there is like that's even kind of another question. Because like
I think that is in place of the boss thing.
Sure.
Like if it's a boss and it sees the weapon, then it's like, oh, I know you want to keep the modifiers in like a specific spot, like their own.
But what I think, like, I feel like the thing that, and Brian, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like the thing you stated there kind of is like, do specific types of weapons deal more damage to bosses or not? And the thing I'm proposing is fractionally different than that, and that do specific costumes change the damage done to just bosses on any weapon?
Couldn't the...
And we could do either or both of those.
Do the weapons know what the costume is?
Well, they ultimately, like, all the values set up will be because of that, because, like I said, if we go back over here...
But do they know, like... Would they know... Do they have any indication as to what...
This is just going to be, like... And these will be all replaced with real costume names.
Super weapon A is like... Boss A takes double damage. Any other weapon deals normal damage to boss A. Is what
Sure.
clarified as, but I still don't think that's exactly what.
Right, because what I'm pitching is that, like, just like instead of something like that, all the different types of weapons do whatever their base damage is to all sources normally, and then we might have like one costume that perhaps doubles the damage done to normal enemies, and we might have a different costume that adds 2 extra damage whenever damage is applied to bosses, and those would just be on, any weapon, not necessarily any particular one, but again, we could do, either of those, both of them, or neither of them ultimately. I'm just kind of throwing ideas out there to, like, now that we've gotten all this set up, it's relatively trivial to do any of the above. That was the whole point of refactoring all this code, so basically maybe I'll even just let it stew, and then, between Brian, if you're online, or Lorraine or whatever, if you guys have thoughts on, like, if you like one of those ideas more than other, if you don't really care about either of them in the final game, then we'll just kind of wing it. And
so he did rephrase this as, so the boss could say, is this pirate Marta, normal damage? Like,
yeah, we could maybe do something like that.
That's why I was asking if the projectiles knew what costume it was. Because then if they stored that data, then the boss could somehow, like, check that to see what it is, and there could be just some other whatever.
Yeah, and by the same note, we could even just, in the same way we're querying the names right here, we could also just store this.
That's kind of what I was saying.
If we want to, I'll just write that down as a separate to-do here, just like,
What if the costume that does more damage to bosses does less damage to normal enemies?
Yeah, that's definitely a thing we could do. I like that. I'm going to write that down too. That's close enough. With that statement, which I really like that idea, and combined with the with just like with my desire to keep as much of this stuff kind of isolated to its own pools as possible, I feel like I'm leaning on. I'm gonna leave all this in this deck right now, and honestly, I think I'll just start thinking about it, and we'll sort of call it a night in the next couple minutes, and then we'll come back to it later. I'm sort of leaning towards probably not doing something like this, and still as kind of like ugly as that list is getting or whatever, still just kind of extending out the form we have right now, because that would make it trivial to set both of those.
Yeah.
And it'll keep everything neatly stored.
That's kind of what I was thinking.
Neatly, in quotes. But it'll keep everything collected.
We're keeping the giant pile of junk inside one bucket.
Yeah, the whole point of refactoring the other code in here, like in the enemies, was to take out like the specifics, to take any specifics out of here and isolate them into just like this pool of information, this like giant data object. That's why it's so giant and so ugly. So I really kind of don't want to break that like structure we've just set up for like boss fights specifically, even though like on some level I can understand why it does make sense. I don't necessarily, just at least right now, that's not where my head is at for the moment. So, but yeah, that is a good note. All right, I like it. So yeah, I'll leave this up. Anything else you want me to add, like notes wise, or like any other to dos on your list, Lorraine?
Sometimes you roll with the technical debt.
Yeah. Well, then you just gotta pick a lane. Like I said, I want a combination of rolling with the technical debt and like picking lanes and sticking to them at this point. Unless there's like a really good reason to like
a really good reason. One reason.
To like, you know, grab the wheel and like skid out into a new lane.
Jump
right. I don't want to jump the median unless we really have to.
Let's fucking go.
So
let's go.
All right. I think that's good. I think that's enough to say we did something today.
It's true. We're planning. We got some bricks laid for next time.
Yeah. There's still gonna be lots of work that needs to be done on this stuff. I'm gonna close Visual Studio for right now, but
and it's
that's fractional progress. Like I said, the other fractional progress I made this week was good. We still got a lot more stuff to do, so hopefully in the next week or two, I'll have less family nonsense, and hopefully work won't get too nuts, like regular ass work, and we'll keep on keeping on. But I suspect we'll be online next Thursday. Lorraine, do you think that'll be true? Probably, maybe.
As of right now, it is.
I'm gonna say with a certainty that at minimum one of us will be online sometime next week. So if it's just me or somehow just Lorraine, probably not that one.
I mean, if it is, it's probably an art stream.
Yeah.
Second art stream.
We'll do something like that. Somebody will be online next week. We'll tweet about it, whatever.
Who missed?
And then most likely it'll be next Thursday around 7:30 p.m. Eastern time. So with all that in mind, I think that's going to do it because I want to go lay down. So thank you, Internet. There I found my hand for hanging out with us. Thank you, Brian, for thoughts and suggestions. Thank you, Lorraine, for joining me.
Oh, yeah.
I need to reach over to this other mouse.
I'm basically duct taped to this chair. That's the only way I'm staying up.
With all that, we'll see you guys later. Goodbye, Internet.
Bye!